Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Luna Lovegood is one of the most mysterious and captivating characters in the wizarding world. She appeared in the 5th book, but it felt like she had always been part of the story. Her character is a blend of dreaminess, oddity, and unexpected wisdom that often baffles even the most pragmatic wizards. Today, I'm going to tell you all the most fascinating things about Luna Lovegood. Enjoy the video. Number 1. She protected Harry. In Order of the Phoenix, when Harry needed to sneak into Umbridge's office to use her fireplace and contact Sirius, he enlisted the help of his friends. Luna and Ginny distracted the Inquisitorial squad to help Harry get inside. But the plan went south. The squad caught them all. However, Hermione's quick thinking led Umbridge into the Forbidden Forest, shifting the tide. Luna, without hesitation, stood shoulder to shoulder with her friends. Her calm under pressure helped neutralize several squad members, especially those who relied more on theory than actual magic. Number 2, she saved Ron and Ginny, the Ministry of Magic. The illusion that Sirius was in danger had already lured Harry and his friends into a trap. A battle with Death Eaters broke out. It all happened so fast, and at one point, it looked like everything was lost. Ron was stunned, Ginny on the verge of collapse. And then Luna. She blasted one of the Death Eaters with a stunning spell so powerful that he flew straight into a model of Pluto, smashing the miniature planet. She saved them both. Quiet, strange Luna showed she could be a true hero when it mattered most. Number 3, her fascination with vampires. From a young age, Luna was drawn to the unusual. Her passion lies in all things mysterious, rare, and mystical. So it's no surprise she once brought up vampires, creatures steeped in myth, even among wizards. At Slughorn's party in Half-Blood Prince, she met Sanguini, a vampire guest. His presence stirred whispers among students, but only Luna dared approach him. Sadly, this scene barely made it into the films. Sanguini was deemed too fleeting for cinema. A pity. The moment had real charm. Number 4, after the Order, she went to Sweden. After all the chaos, Luna and her father decided it was time for an adventure, or, as they put it, a scientific expedition. Their destination? Sweden, in search of the crumple-horned Snorkak, a mythical creature no one believed in, except them. They set off for Sweden, where rumours said the creature lived. Amazingly, they could afford the trip thanks to Harry's interview in the Quibbler. After it was published, the magazine's popularity skyrocketed, even surpassing the Daily Prophet for a while, a surprising victory and a well-earned break. Number 5, she commentated Quidditch. After Lee Jordan left Hogwarts, Luna was invited to commentate on Quidditch matches. Let's just say the game became unforgettable. Instead of narrating the actual match, Luna talked about the weather, the shape of the clouds, players' equipment, and even elves only she seemed to see. She mixed up names and lost track of the score, but that's what made it brilliant. Her commentary was so bizarre that even the sternest professors didn't know how to react. The films skipped over this scene, but book fans remember that surreal match well. Number 6. She helped Harry tell his story. 5th year was a nightmare for Harry. Voldemort's return, mistrust from his peers, and the press smearing his name. Most thought he'd gone mad, and few were willing to stand with him. That's when Luna stepped in. Her father Xenophilius published The Quibbler, eccentric but independent. That's where Harry finally told his truth. The interview was conducted by Rita Skeeter. Yes, the same one Hermione once turned into a docile beetle. Thanks to that article, students began to question the official version of events. It was a turning point, and all thanks to Luna. Number 7, she was tricked by Severus Snape. In Half-Blood Prince, when Dumbledore and Harry left to search for a Horcrux, Harry sensed something was brewing at Hogwarts. He asked Luna and Ginny to keep an eye on Professor Snape, suspecting betrayal. Then the moment came. Snape was headed toward the tower where the final act would play out. But he was clever. He told Luna that Professor Flitwick had fainted and needed help. Naturally, she rushed to assist. How could she not trust a professor? Snape used the distraction to clear his path to the astronomy tower. Number 8. She could see Thestrals. Luna saw the Thestrals before Harry did. Silent, skeletal, winged creatures that pulled the Hogwarts carriages no one else seemed to notice. Most students walked past them, blind to their presence. But Luna watched them with quiet familiarity. She wasn't afraid. She reached out and stroked one gently. When Harry asked how she could see them, she answered softly, "You're not going mad. I can see them too. You're just as sane as I." It was the first time someone made him feel less alone in his grief. She had seen her mother die, a spell gone wrong, a flash of light. Silence. Luna was 9. That moment changed her forever, not just in what she saw, but in what she understood. Death, to Luna, was not something to fear. It was something to witness, to carry, and even to find beauty in. The Thestrals weren't monsters to her. They were companions, gentle reminders that love and loss always walk together. Number 9. She created original jewelry. She wore radish earrings like they were diamonds, handcrafted, dangling, and bright red. No one else would have dared. But Luna didn't dress to impress. She dressed to express. Her butterbeer cork necklace bounced against her robes as she walked. "They keep the Nargles away," she explained once, completely serious. To most it sounded like nonsense, but to Luna it was protection, a quiet kind of faith in things others couldn't see. In Half-Blood Prince, Harry watched her enter Slughorn's party in silver robes and a beetle-shaped ring. "You look nice," he said, surprised. "Thank you," she answered simply. "Father says my earrings give me the aura of a turnip." No blushing, no shame, just Luna being Luna. Her accessories weren't decoration, they were a message. Believe what you believe. Wear your truth, even if it sparkles like madness. Number 10, her name is deeply symbolic. Her name was never random. Luna means moon, and Luna Lovegood moved like moonlight, quiet, strange, and impossible to ignore. J.K. Rowling gave her that name on purpose. Luna wasn't grounded like Hermione. She drifted, dreamed, wandered through life like a silver shadow. But just like the moon, she brought light to others. In Order of the Phoenix, she found Harry alone after Sirius's death and told him, "Things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end." She didn't try to fix him. She simply stood beside him, glowing softly in the dark. She was odd, yes. But the moon is odd too. It pulls oceans and shapes tides without making a sound. That was Luna. Her presence changed people without them realizing it. She reminded them that not everything needs to be loud to be powerful, that not every truth is obvious. Luna's name wasn't just a label, it was a mirror, and every time someone said it, they remembered that light can come from the quietest place in the sky. Number 11, she became a magizoologist. After the Battle of Hogwarts, Luna didn't settle down. She packed her case, laced her boots, and went looking for creatures no one else believed in. She became a magizoologist, not just in name, but in heart. Her first expedition took her deep into the Albanian forests, chasing rumors of a translucent flying mammal she called the moon sniffer. Most wizards laughed. She didn't mind. "Things are often real before people are ready to see them," she wrote in the Quibbler. She documented creatures that hadn't been seen in centuries. The whispering fuzzlebird of Patagonia, the singing toadfish of the Faroe Islands. She never captured them. She observed. She listened. She described their habitats with such vivid detail that even skeptics began to question their certainty. Her sketches, drawn in violet ink, were pinned in magical classrooms across Europe. Xenophilius Lovegood proudly reprinted them all. "She's doing what I only dreamed of," he once told a reader. Luna's reports weren't scientific in the traditional sense. They read like poetry. Her field notes were full of starlight, moss, and soft wind over rivers. But buried inside them were patterns, new insights into magical ecosystems. The ministry never recognized her work formally. That never stopped her. "Discovery isn't about proof," she said in one interview. "It's about keeping your eyes open long enough to be amazed." And that's what she did, again and again. Number 12. She married into the Scamander family. She married a naturalist, not just any wizard, but Rolf Scamander, the grandson of Newt Scamander, the man who once kept a thunderbird in a suitcase and wrote fantastic beasts and where to find them. Rolf was quiet and thoughtful, with ink-stained fingers and a mind full of magical creatures. Luna met him during a research trip to the Hebrides. She was tracking moon frogs. He was sketching selkies. They argued about bowtruckles, and then they laughed. That was the start. Their life together wasn't lived in one place. It was built across deserts, glaciers, and cloud forests. They lived in tents, tree houses, underwater domes. Luna wrote articles for the Quibbler about invisible beasts and skyborne jellyfish. Rolf studied the behavior of fire crabs in mating season. "We're not running away from the world," Luna once said. "We're just seeing all of it." They weren't escaping. They were exploring. They had twin sons, Lorcan and Lysander. The boys were born under a summer moon in a floating tent off the coast of Fiji. Luna taught them to respect every creature, even the ones people didn't believe in. Rolf taught them to listen to silence. At age 5, Lorcan insisted a Nundu had winked at him. Luna nodded and handed him a journal. "Then you must write that down. Truth hides in strange places." Their home was filled with bones, feathers, broken broomsticks, and laughter. Family dinners happened around campfires. Bedtime stories were about dragons, but real ones. And through it all, Luna remained herself. Strange, radiant, fearless. The same girl who once wore butterbeer corks as a necklace now wore muddy boots and a newborn in a sling. She didn't just find love. She found someone who believed in magic as much as she did. Number 13, she became a symbol of individuality. Luna Lovegood didn't try to fit in. She never changed to please others. When people laughed at her radish earrings or the butterbeer cork necklace, she didn't stop wearing them. She didn't even seem to notice the whispers in the corridors. When students called her Loony Lovegood, she didn't flinch. She just looked at them, wide-eyed and serene, as if she saw something they couldn't. "You're just as sane as I am," she once told Harry, her voice calm and certain. It sounded odd, but it stayed with him. In a world where even wizards chased approval, Luna stood still. She believed in Nargles. She read the Quibbler like it was sacred text. She spoke about things others found ridiculous. And yet there she was, fighting alongside the DA, standing beside Harry at the Department of Mysteries, helping rebuild after the war. Her strength was never loud. It was the kind that didn't need to shout. She taught others that being different wasn't something to hide. It was something to protect. After the books, fans remembered her differently. Not just as the dreamy Ravenclaw, but as a symbol of truth without apology. Cosplayers chose her not for glamour, but for honesty. On forums, Luna's quotes became shields for the quiet kids. "Being different isn't a bad thing," she once said. "It means you're brave enough to be yourself." For many, she became a friend they had never met, someone who reminded them that not fitting in didn't mean being broken. Even J.K. Rowling spoke of Luna with a special kind of reverence. She revealed that Luna grew into a famous magizoologist, married Rolf Scamander, and remained as wonderfully odd as ever. Luna never grew out of herself. She grew into herself. That's why she lasted. That's why she mattered. Luna didn't teach spells. She taught courage, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't beg for attention. The kind that simply exists and endures. Number 14, she was kidnapped by Death Eaters. Luna Lovegood didn't choose to be a prisoner. She became one because of her father's courage. Xenophilius Lovegood published an article in the Quibbler supporting Harry Potter, and the Order of the Phoenix, the Death Eaters, noticed. And they took Luna, not because she fought them, but because she was his daughter. They used her as a threat to break Xenophilius, to silence the Quibbler, to spread fear. She was dragged to Malfoy Manor, locked away like a criminal for believing in the right thing. She wasn't alone. Wandmaker Garrick Ollivander was there too, pale and frail, a shadow of the man he once was. The dungeons were dark, damp and cold, but Luna never panicked. When Harry, Ron and Hermione were eventually captured and brought to the same manor, they found Luna changed, but not broken. She was quite cheerful, the book says, as Harry looked at her with surprise. She greeted him with calm, "Hello, Harry." "Oh no, it's all right. I've been here for weeks." Her voice never trembled. Her eyes never lost their light. When others faltered, Luna steadied them. She gave comfort to Ollivander. She soothed Hermione after Bellatrix's torture. Her stillness was not weakness, it was strength, the kind that doesn't scream, the kind that shines when everything else fades. Even locked underground, Luna remained Luna, gentle, steady, and utterly fearless. When Dobby the house elf came to rescue them, Luna didn't hesitate. She helped him guide the prisoners out. When others stumbled, she reached for them. In the chaos, she remained focused, and as they apparated to safety, she turned one last time to make sure no one was left behind. Luna's dreaminess was never a flaw. In that moment, it was a gift. She had already lived inside her mind, and so she was. Never afraid of the dark. Number 15, she helped Harry understand the Deathly Hallows. In the quiet shadows of the second half of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, where the war against Voldemort tightened its grip and hope grew faint, one character, gentle, dreamy, often underestimated, stepped forward in a way few readers fully appreciated. Luna Lovegood, often dismissed as eccentric, unknowingly handed Harry a key that would unlock the very heart of the mystery surrounding the Deathly Hallows. While the battle between good and evil raged, it was within the pale-walled home of the Lovegoods that a subtle, world-altering truth revealed itself, stitched into a tale that began as a fable and ended as a revelation. Her presence in the narrative became not just a breath of innocence in a collapsing world, but a compass for the truth Harry had yet to discover. The Lovegood house stood like an island apart from the chaos, its walls as peculiar as the minds inside it. But beneath its layers of strangeness was hidden knowledge, ancient and potent. It was there, among the cluttered shelves and clattering printing press of the Quibbler, that Harry first saw the symbol. A circle, a line, and a triangle, suspended from Xenophilius Lovegood's neck. "That's the sign of the Deathly Hallows," Luna said, with the calm certainty of someone who had known it all her life. What she offered in that moment was not just information, but an inheritance of understanding passed down quietly through bedtime stories and whispered wisdoms. Harry's gaze fixed on the pendant, its shape foreign yet magnetic, and something stirred. The moment was almost forgettable in the flurry of the storyline, but Luna's casual reference to the symbol planted a seed. She had seen it her entire life, etched into her family's belief system, woven through the tapestry of the tales Xenophilius had fed her. That triangle, enclosing a circle bisected by a line, was a map, not of places, but of ideas, of power and of choice. Luna, in her unassuming way, invited Harry into a story older than Hogwarts, older than Voldemort. The tale of the three brothers. Later, inside that very house, the tale came alive in words. Xenophilius recited the tale of the three brothers from the tales of Beedle the Bard, a story that Hermione had previously brushed off as folklore. But Luna had grown up believing it held truth. "My father says it's true," she had said, without hesitation, without a trace of doubt. Her belief was not naive, it was instinctive, born not of books or logic, but of a deeper wisdom. In Luna's world, the boundary between myth and reality had never been solid. It was that openness, that belief in the impossible, that cracked open the mystery of the Hallows for Harry. The story of the three brothers, Antioch, Cadmus, and Ignotus, felt like nothing more than a dark fairy tale at first. A wand, a stone, a cloak. But for Harry, each artifact bore a haunting familiarity. The Elder Wand was now in the possession of Voldemort. The Resurrection Stone had been hidden within the golden snitch Dumbledore left him, and the invisibility cloak, his own, passed down through the Potter line. All three existed, scattered yet real. But it was Luna's unwavering belief in the truth behind the tale that pushed Harry to see beyond coincidence and superstition. As Xenophilius, under duress and desperation, betrayed their location to the Death Eaters, a veil of distrust fell across the encounter, yet the damage was already done, or rather, the good had already been achieved. The tale had been told, the sign had been revealed, and Luna's quiet role had been played to perfection. She had no way of knowing how important that moment would become, nor how the stories she had heard since childhood would change the course of the final battle. She simply believed, and that belief gave Harry a lens to see what even Dumbledore had left obscured. The Elder Wand, the most powerful wand ever made, had already drawn Voldemort's obsession. But Harry, through Luna's influence, began to grasp that power was not the true heart of the tale. The Resurrection Stone, promising contact with the dead, reflected another layer of danger. And yet, it was the third Hallow, the one Harry already possessed, that became the quiet hero of the story. The third brother greeted death as an old friend, the tale had said. Luna had heard those words countless times, and it was that line that Harry would carry with him to the Forbidden Forest, to his own death, cloaked and ready. Luna's connection to the Hallows was never spelled out in grandeur. She didn't fight for them or seek them, but she held the knowledge of them as a child holds a lullaby, instinctively, reverently. It was that purity of understanding that allowed Harry to trust the tale. While Hermione saw it as fiction and Ron was slow to accept its truth, Luna's conviction stood firm. Her belief was like a soft light in the fog of doubt. She never argued or insisted, she simply knew. That knowing gave Harry clarity when he most needed it. In the confusion following the discovery of the symbol and the reading of the tale, Harry's mind turned it over and over again. Why would Dumbledore give him the snitch? Why hide something inside it? Why had he been left no answers, only riddles? The presence of the Hallows in his life became undeniable, and Luna, dreamy, scattered Luna, had been the first to show him the path. Her childhood stories, the ones most would dismiss, had been treasure maps all along. Number 16. She saw ghosts differently than others. Luna Lovegood never flinched at the sight of a ghost. While others may have turned pale when the Bloody Baron drifted silently through the hallway, or ducked in discomfort at the sudden burst of song from the Fat Friar, Luna remained still, her gaze steady and accepting. Her wide, silvery eyes did not see ghosts the same way her classmates did. To her, they were not mere remnants of tragedy or misfortune. They were echoes of purpose, soft voices misplaced in time. At Hogwarts, where superstition danced hand in hand with tradition, Luna never treated ghosts as curiosities or ominous warnings. She treated them as companions. In the long hallways of the castle, Luna often walked alone. But she was not lonely. She spoke freely with nearly headless Nick, the resident ghost of Gryffindor Tower, who was more accustomed to being gawked at than understood. He found in Luna a curious mind not driven by fear or fascination, but by empathy. She once told him that his almost detached head reminded her of a crumple-horned snorkack. Not because you're strange, but because people always forget to ask them what it feels like. Her perspective disarmed him. For the first time in centuries, he felt something akin to being seen. The Grey Lady, the solemn and elusive ghost of Ravenclaw Tower, was known for her silence and sorrow. Students often tiptoed past her, afraid to speak lest they provoke her melancholy. But Luna greeted her as if she were a professor or a prefect. The Grey Lady, Helena Ravenclaw, respected Luna not because she demanded it, but because she never questioned Helena's pain. She didn't pry, she didn't theorize, she listened. And that, more than anything, earned her an uncommon reverence from the ghost who spoke to few. In her 5th year, Luna spent many evenings in the library's back room, studying by candlelight, her parchment scribbled with drawings of creatures no one else believed in. On more than one occasion, a ghost would drift nearby, observing quietly. Luna never shooed them away. She would sometimes glance up and say softly, "You can stay if you'd like," without ever breaking her writing rhythm. Madame Pince found this unnerving, but the ghosts remained calm in Luna's presence, never knocking over books or triggering cold drafts. During one particularly cold evening in December, Luna walked the grounds alone, her shoes crunching through fresh snow. As she passed the edge of the forbidden forest, she paused and looked to the trees. Moments later, a pale form emerged, the Grey Lady, shimmering against the dark canopy. Luna didn't ask why she had come. Instead, she said, "They forget how heavy it is, don't they? All that time." The ghost didn't respond, but she lingered longer than usual, a quiet confirmation that Luna had, once again, touched something few could understand. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the other students viewed Luna as odd, sometimes cruelly so. Loony Lovegood, they called her. But behind the eccentricities, radish earrings, upside-down magazines, and her famous lion head hat, was an unusually perceptive soul. Her connection to the spirit world was not merely visual. Yes, she could see ghosts, but she saw them too in a way that went beyond the physical. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Luna calmly explains to Harry, "You're not going mad. I can see them too. You're just as sane as I am." She was speaking about Thestrals, but the line echoed deeper truths about how she experienced the unseen. Luna believed ghosts were shadows of the soul who simply forgot where they were going. She didn't claim this as fact, only as a feeling. While Professor Binns droned on in his ghostly monotone about goblin rebellions, Luna pondered what made a soul linger. She wondered why nearly headless Nick, who had died in 1492, still wandered the halls. She didn't see him as trapped. She believed he chose to stay, perhaps out of kindness, perhaps out of habit, perhaps simply because no one had shown him how to leave. Most students at Hogwarts saw ghosts as curiosities or relics of the past. Harry, Ron, and Hermione rarely asked them more than practical questions. How to reach a certain corridor, how to get Peeves to behave. But Luna asked them about their memories. She once sat beside the fat friar for 2 full hours, sketching a portrait of him while he recounted the last sermon he ever gave as a living man. He spoke of mercy, Luna remembered, mercy and misunderstanding. Luna kept the drawing in her dormitory beside her bed. One night, shortly before the Battle of Hogwarts, Luna visited the Ravenclaw common room and found the Grey Lady hovering near the Diadem's former resting place. Most would have retreated. Helena was not known for conversation, but Luna stood still. And for the first time, the ghost turned and looked her directly in the eyes. "He asked me about it," Helena said, her voice barely audible. "The boy." She meant Harry. Luna nodded and said, "He's looking for truth. That's why he sees you." The Grey Lady didn't reply, but again she stayed. There was a moment in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows when Luna and Harry are imprisoned together in the dungeons of Malfoy Manor. In the stillness of their cell, Luna kept calm, comforting others. Harry later reflected that Luna had a kind of quiet strength, born not of spells or strategy, but of inner balance. That strength perhaps came from her familiarity with death. Having lost her mother as a child and having conversed with ghosts for years, Luna didn't fear the veil between life and death. She had stood near it and spoken through it. Number 17, she helped revive Dumbledore's army. When the halls of Hogwarts no longer echoed with laughter, but with the cruel commands of Alecto and Amicus Caro, the very spirit of the school darkened. The banners still fluttered in the great hall, but the warmth that once filled the castle had long vanished. Under this cloud of fear and oppression, a few brave souls dared to resist, to remember what Hogwarts had stood for. Among them stood Luna Lovegood, whose serene demeanour belied the fierce loyalty and courage that burned within her heart. She had once been the odd girl with radish earrings and dreamy eyes, but in the shadows of tyranny she became a beacon of hope. Alongside Neville Longbottom and Ginny Weasley, Luna helped resurrect Dumbledore's army, not as a student club, but as a genuine rebellion. They chose the Room of Requirement as their refuge, a place that answered the needs of those who knew how to ask. It became more than a hiding spot. It was a sanctuary, a fortress, a place where laughter still dared to echo in the face of cruelty. It was the room that remembered. Luna, Neville, and Ginny led the effort to gather allies, spreading word cautiously, whispering passwords into the ears of those they could trust. They had no illusions. This was not a game, it was war. And Luna, despite her reputation as an eccentric dreamer, became a figure of quiet strength, offering reassurance in the bleakest moments. While Neville was bruised from yet another altercation with the Caros, Luna would be the one to gently tend to him with healing charms she had learned from her mother's old books. She would hum as she worked, speaking softly about Thestrals and Nargles, not to distract, but to soothe, to remind everyone that magic was more than just curses and combat. It was wonder too. In those hidden chambers beneath the castle, she helped keep that wonder alive. "The DA's still recruiting," she would say, echoing Fred and George's old posters, and in those words was a quiet defiance no curse could touch. Luna's role wasn't only one of morale. She fought. She trained others in defensive spells, her wand work graceful and precise. She knew how to disarm, how to shield, and when the time came, how to strike with force. In one moment remembered well by survivors, Luna stood in front of a first-year girl, trembling in fear during a surprise raid by the Caro twins. Without hesitation, Luna stepped forward and cast a stupefy so powerful it knocked Amicus off his feet. That night, she was almost caught. But she vanished into the shifting walls of the Room of Requirement, leading the child to safety. She never asked for thanks. The resistance Luna helped build wasn't about grand speeches or flashy heroism. It was about food when they were hungry. It was about healing hands when someone came back from detention broken. It was about remembering birthdays in whispers and lighting candles with wand tips in the dark. Luna made everyone feel seen, even as the world tried to erase them. "We're still students," she once said to Seamus Finnegan, who had been doubting the worth of their fight. "But we're also warriors now, we just have to be both." It was Luna who found old parchment and enchanted it to send secret messages through the walls. It was her idea to use enchanted coins again, just like Hermione had done during the original DA meetings. When someone was caught, Luna helped orchestrate escapes, relying on maps, secret passages, and trust. She memorized the guard rotations, knowing when Filch would limp through the third floor and when Alecto's patience would wear thin. The Room of Requirement, under Luna's gentle guidance, became not just a base of operations, but a symbol of Hogwarts' unyielding heart. Yet resistance has its price. One night, Luna disappeared. The Caros had caught her near the library, where she'd gone to retrieve a banned herbology book for Neville. No one saw her for weeks. Rumours spread that she had been taken to the dungeons, that she was being tortured, that she was gone for good. But no one dared stop. In her absence, the DA continued, because of the systems she helped build, because of the courage she had planted in them like seeds. Luna wouldn't want us to stop, Ginny told the others, her voice trembling. She believes in us, so we have to believe in her. What Luna endured in that time is never fully described in the books, but we know she was imprisoned in the dungeons of Malfoy Manor alongside Mr. Ollivander, the wand maker. She was there not because she was reckless, but because she was dangerous to them. The Death Eaters feared her influence. They feared the calm in her eyes, the kind of calm that comes from knowing what is right and never backing down. Luna was not broken. In captivity, she comforted Mr. Ollivander, gave him strength. Her spirit never dimmed. When she was rescued, it wasn't by the auras, nor by Dumbledore's portrait. It was by a house elf named Dobby, whose bravery on that night carved his name into history. Luna held his hand tightly when they apparated to Shell Cottage, whispering thanks through the smoke and rubble. She was bruised, thin, but unbroken. She would later help dig the grave for Dobby, and it was she who closed his eyes, whispering a blessing only she knew, her voice trembling not with fear, but with reverence. She had been saved, but she had never stopped being a saviour. Number 18, her wand was unique. Of all the curious students who walked the stone corridors of Hogwarts, Luna Lovegood was perhaps the most enigmatic. With radish earrings swaying and a dreamy look always lingering in her eyes, she lived in a world that seemed to hover just beyond ordinary perception. But what few noticed was the depth of her magical ability, the profound harmony that coursed through her magic, like a river untouched by storm. And nothing embodied this mysterious, harmonious power better than her wand. A wand made of cherry wood, with a core of dragon heartstring, a rare and potent combination that perfectly matched her singular spirit. Cherry wood is not commonly associated with British wand lore. Grigorovich once wrote that cherry wands were prized in the East for their beauty and strength, and rarely seen in Western schools. Yet here it was in the hands of a young witch who spoke to Thestrals and believed in creatures no one else dared to name. Cherry, according to Ollivander, was a wood that demanded harmony from its master. It resisted those who sought power for power's sake. But in Luna it found the gentle, accepting soul it required, someone who did not push magic, but invited it. The dragon heartstring at its core was in many ways its perfect opposite. It pulsed with intensity, raw strength, and an innate desire for action. Dragon cores were known to produce wands with a strong sense of loyalty, but also a certain volatility, if misaligned. For someone like Luna, whose entire existence was a balance of lightness and deep intuition, the dragon heartstring added a necessary fire to her spellwork. It gave her spells weight when her gentle demeanour might have suggested otherwise. The combination was rare, not just in composition, but in the way it worked so flawlessly for her. Though not detailed at length in the books, Luna's wand becomes a symbol of her evolution. The cherry wood reflects her serenity, the inner calm with which she faced danger, ridicule, and loss. The dragon heartstring marked her resilience, the fierce loyalty she showed to her friends, and the unshakable courage she displayed in the darkest hours. She was not a traditional fighter, but when the time came, her magic struck with surprising force and precision. She was among those who fought at the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, her spells casting light into the veils of shadow as the cherry and dragon core pulsed together with perfect balance. It's not widely known, but Ollivander himself later commented on Luna's original wand. While imprisoned in Malfoy Manor, Luna's presence was a rare comfort to him. In the quiet moments when they weren't being interrogated or humiliated, she spoke gently, not only to him, but to the walls, to the air, as if casting a protective spell of her own kind. Ollivander, broken and frail, later told Harry that Luna had a rare kindness that no pain could silence. When they finally escaped, it was Luna who supported the elder wandmaker, as he stumbled to freedom, his hands still shaking from torture. Her wand, however, was lost during her capture. The Death Eaters had taken it, snapped it perhaps, or discarded it, believing it too strange, too unremarkable, to bother keeping. Luna never complained. She spoke of it only once, saying it had been a dear companion, and that she hoped it found peace. For many, the loss of a wand is a traumatic wound, like losing a limb. But Luna, true to her nature, mourned it with the same quiet grace with which she approached all loss. A moment of sorrow, and then a look skyward. After the escape, Ollivander insisted on crafting her a new wand. He had been inspired, not by duty, but by gratitude and something deeper. Reverence. He had created thousands of wands in his lifetime, each unique, but he would later whisper to Bill Weasley that Luna's new wand was the most alive he had ever made. It pulsed when he held it. It whispered before it was spoken to. He believed it was a wand that had chosen not just a master, but a purpose. There is no official record of the materials used in Luna's second wand, but it is believed Ollivander once hinted that he used the same cherry wood again, out of respect for her affinity. As for the core, speculation swirled that he used another strand of dragon heartstring, perhaps from the same dragon family, a symbolic rebirth. If so, it would be one of the few times Ollivander ever repeated himself, defying his own principle that no two wands should ever be two alike. But Luna was not just any witch. The nature of her magic began to change subtly after that. Observers, professors and peers alike, noted that her spells had a rhythm to them, an almost musical quality. Flitwick once remarked, "Luna's charm work has grace, like a bird gliding on a breeze." Her wand responded with precision and depth, not by force, but through balance. She could levitate objects with a flick so light it seemed accidental. She could calm frightened creatures with barely a whisper. Her magic was art, not combat. At the Battle of Hogwarts, Luna's new wand was seen in full force. She was not among the loudest duelists. She did not yell incantations like some, but she stood her ground near the Ravenclaw Tower and later in the Great Hall, defending the fallen and guiding the confused. Her spells glowed silver and gold, brighter than torchlight, often striking their targets with uncanny accuracy. Her Patronus, a hare, danced among the shadows like a beacon of gentleness amidst violence. What made Luna's wand especially powerful was that it reflected who she was at every level. Wands choose the wizard, but in Luna's case it felt as if they composed her soul in return. There was no brutality in her casting, no arrogance. The cherry wood harmonized with her empathy, while the dragon heartstring reminded all that she was not to be underestimated. Together they made her magic both beautiful and devastating, a testament to the idea that strength comes in many forms. One memorable moment came during her duel with a masked Death Eater near the marble staircase. Luna moved with the fluidity of a dancer, her spells deflecting curses with the grace of falling snow. When she finally disarmed her opponent, it was not with aggression, but with precision. A calculated moment of stillness, followed by a flash of silvery light. Her wand glowed for several seconds afterward, as if it had exhaled. Later that night, when the battle had ended and the dead were being counted, Luna sat beside the injured, humming softly. Her wand rested in her lap, quiet as if it too was mourning. Dean Thomas, who had fought beside her, later said, "Her wand was like her. It listened, it waited, and then it spoke with conviction." Years later, when Luna became a naturalist and travelled the world in search of magical creatures, she continued to carry that same wand. She believed it helped her connect with the unseen. She wrote in one of her letters to Rolf Scamander, "I think it understands the creatures before I do. It has a way of reaching hearts, not just minds." Rolf would later confirm that Luna's magic was especially effective around skittish or dangerous beasts who seemed calmed merely by her presence. Even in the deepest forests of Albania or the icy valleys of northern Norway, Luna trusted her wand as a compass. It did not guide her like a map, but it responded to her intent. When she was lost, it vibrated slightly in her hand. When danger approached, it warmed like a gentle warning. She never questioned its instincts. For her, it was alive, not just enchanted wood and string, but a partner. Ollivander, before his death, told Hermione Granger that Luna's wand was proof that the most extraordinary magic is born not from control, but from connection. He kept a sketch of it in his notes, alongside only a few others. Wands he considered transcendent. He never sold another cherry and dragon wand again. To him, it would have been redundant. In the years following the Second Wizarding War, wand lore scholars wrote about Luna's wand in new textbooks. One footnote in Modern Magical Implements states, "The Lovegood wand, as it came to be known, defied traditional categorization. Its resonance was unusually high, its pulse extremely sensitive, and its harmonic field responsive even to low-level emotional shifts." It became a subject of debate in wand theory, how much of the wand's power came from materials and how much from the person. Though Luna never returned to formal magical study, her wand was displayed once, briefly, at a Hogwarts exhibition on magical innovation. She allowed it on the condition that it be placed among the plants and creatures, not in a glass case. Visitors were said to have felt something when they stood near it. A strange calm, a breath of wind that didn't quite come from air. One child swore she saw the wand shimmer. But perhaps the greatest testament to its power came not in battle, nor in study, but in a quiet story told by Professor Sprout. Years after the war, Luna visited her old herbology teacher, who was struggling to heal a dying patch of whomping willow saplings. Luna walked among them, whispered a few words, and held her wand over the soil. The trees calmed, they stopped thrashing. The roots pulsed faintly. The next day the saplings were growing again. No spell was recorded, no incantation named, only the presence of something pure. Such was the nature of Luna's wand. Rare, quiet, and magnificent, not because it burned brightest in war, but because it never forgot how to bring peace. Number 19. She had a gift for comforting others. In the shadowed corridors of Hogwarts, where ghosts whispered in portraits and the stones remembered footsteps long gone, there was one presence who seemed to exist slightly outside the ordinary flow of time. Luna Lovegood, often dismissed as odd or eccentric, had a peculiar gravity about her, one that did not seek attention but offered silent anchorage to those caught in emotional storms. In the height of grief and chaos, when the bravest found themselves wordless, Luna had a rare ability to comfort not with solutions but with understanding. Her words did not dazzle or command. They settled gently, like feathers on water, softening the weight of sorrow. It was at the end of Harry's 5th year, after the echo of Sirius Black's final scream had faded into the void beyond the veil, that Luna's strange magic revealed its depth. The battle of the Department of Mysteries had left more than wounds and confusion. It had taken from Harry the closest thing to family he had ever known. Dumbledore's explanations afterward, however truthful, could not reach the hollowness that sat in Harry's chest. He wandered the halls like a shell of himself, heavy with guilt, disbelief, and a pain so raw it had no language. The others tried. Hermione offered her thoughtful silences. Ron attempted jokes that never quite reached his eyes, but their efforts only made the gap more apparent. It was Luna who found Harry alone by the tapestry of Barnabas the Balmy, lost in a space that wasn't truly the present. She stood beside him without announcement, her gaze far off as if she were looking at something behind the walls themselves. She did not apologize or offer sympathy. She spoke, instead, of her mother. "I still feel very sad about it sometimes," she said. "But I've still got Dad, and anyway, It's not as though I'll never see Mum again, is it? These words, nestled in a sea of surreal beliefs and soft certainty, struck Harry with a strange force. She had not tried to make it better. She had told the truth of loss as she knew it, honest, aching and quietly resilient. J.K. Rowling writes, she had been able to see the Thestrals too, and it had not seemed odd to her that Harry could also. It had made him feel less alone. There was no performance in Luna's kindness, no rehearsed condolences. She did not fear grief or avoid it. She welcomed it with the same calm she brought to every conversation about Nargles or crumple-horned Snorkax. It was this authenticity that made her rare. While others shielded their discomfort behind platitudes, Luna faced pain like she faced the impossible, with open arms. Even her physical presence in those moments mattered. She did not fidget or force eye contact. She was simply there, present without pressure. Luna's gift wasn't merely in what she said, but in the way she occupied space, allowing others to feel without needing to explain. After Sirius's death, when words became knives and silence became unbearable, Luna's soft-spoken reflections acted as a balm. Harry, who had screamed and broken Dumbledore's possessions in rage, found himself finally breathing again after that brief exchange near the tapestry. This was not an isolated moment. Luna's empathy would later be felt again during Bill and Fleur's wedding, when tensions simmered and memories of war crept into even joyful events. She wore a sunflower in her hair and danced barefoot, untouched by convention, but keenly aware of the underlying emotions in the room. When George cracked a joke to hide his discomfort about his missing ear, Luna laughed, not out of politeness, but with a sincerity that reminded him he was whole in other ways. That too was her magic. She mirrored back the beauty in people when they could no longer see it in themselves. During Dobby's burial, Luna knelt beside Harry and helped him dig. She offered no philosophical commentary, no grand statements about death. But when Harry began to carve into the stone, "Here lies Dobby, a free elf," she watched with a quiet reverence. Her silence said everything. It acknowledged the dignity of mourning, the sacredness of grief. She had once said to Harry, "The things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect." It was not a spell, yet it lifted a corner of the veil that cloaked despair. Even in the chaotic months at Shell Cottage, Luna remained a steady presence. She offered Ginny small observations about the sea, shared bits of poetry she claimed were messages from the merpeople, and once left a basket of shells at the foot of Hermione's bed, believing they protected dreams. Others might have laughed, but they all slept easier that night. Luna's comfort was never transactional. She gave because she believed deeply in kindness, not as virtue, but as necessity. Her captivity at Malfoy Manor revealed another dimension of her strength. Though imprisoned, Luna did not fall into bitterness. Mr. Ollivander later spoke of her as a light in that darkness. Her calmness had soothed his fears. She had reassured him, even in a dungeon, that there was still good outside those walls. That belief, expressed through nothing more than her tone and her eyes, sustained the old wand-maker more than any spell could have. For Luna, hope was not something one reached for. It was something she carried. It's easy to mistake Luna's gentleness for naivety, but she was not blind to the world's cruelty. She simply refused to let it harden her. Her belief in unseen creatures, in the voices of the dead, in hidden realms of wonder, these were not delusions. They were expressions of faith in what cannot always be proved, but must sometimes be felt. In the world of witches and wands, Luna's real magic was human and intangible, the ability to make someone feel understood. Neville Longbottom, too, bore witness to her rare intuition. During the desperate days at Hogwarts, when the Carrows ruled by fear, Luna would whisper to the frightened students in the room of requirement, sharing odd stories and strange legends not to distract them, but to give them a sense of perspective. "There are places," she once said, "where time moves differently." Maybe that's where the pain gets smaller. Neville never forgot those words. Nor did he forget how, when his hands shook with anger, she gently placed her hand over his and said nothing at all. Her friendships, too, were rooted in this same emotional intelligence. When Hermione once criticized her harshly in third person, "She's good value, but a bit, well, you know, loopy," Luna never flinched. She did not retaliate. She only smiled in her faraway way. Later, during the battle, she stood beside Hermione like a sister. Luna forgave easily, not because she lacked pride, but because she saw people in their entirety, their pain, their errors, their hearts trying to beat through layers of fear and insecurity. In the Deathly Hallows, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione break into Xenophilius Lovegood's home, Luna is not there. She has been taken. Yet her presence remains in the drawings on the wall, friends encircled by golden threads that connect them like constellations. Luna had drawn them not as warriors, but as companions. In her worldview, it was not bravery alone that would win the war, but the bonds they shared. She reminded them that strength could be soft, that gentleness could survive even under siege. After the war, she became a naturalist, continuing to search for magical creatures that others claimed did not exist. But perhaps what she truly searched for was wonder and the ability to share it. She married Rolf Scamander, grandson of Newt Scamander, and together they raised twins. The woman once ridiculed for her oddities became a mother who taught her children not just spells, but stories. Not just facts, but feelings. Her empathy had grown roots, stretching beyond Hogwarts and into the next generation. Yet it is still that single moment with Harry after Sirius's death that defines the core of Luna's gift. Where others hesitated, unsure how to breach the walls grief builds, she walked in as though the door had never been closed. She shared her pain not as comparison, but as connection. She offered her own scar to validate his. In that moment, Harry realized he was not alone, and that realization, so small, so sacred, became a turning point in his journey through sorrow. When one looks back at Luna Lovegood's arc through the series, it becomes clear she was never a side character. She was the emotional counterweight to a world obsessed with action and outcomes. In a story driven by prophecy, violence, and ancient power, Luna was the quiet answer to the question no spell could solve. How do we go on when we lose what we love? She responded not with magic, but with meaning. She saw Harry not as the chosen one, but as a boy who had lost too much, and by seeing him this way, she allowed him to feel like a person again. Her belief that the dead are not truly gone might have been rooted in whimsy, but it gave Harry something real, the ability to grieve without despair. In her own way, Luna taught him that love and loss are not opposites. They are bound, one proving the existence of the other. Even today, when fans speak of the most powerful characters in the Harry Potter universe, they often list the duelists, the strategists, the brave. But those who look closer, who remember the moment by the tapestry, the laughter at the wedding, the drawings on the wall, know that Luna's power was not in combat. It was in compassion, and in a world torn by war and vengeance, that might have been the rarest magic of all. Number 20. She was inspired by nature and the cosmos. Luna Lovegood never quite fit in with the rest of Hogwarts, but that was never her purpose. Her world spun on a different axis, one influenced not just by magic, but by a deep reverence for the natural forces that whispered through the wind, shimmered in moonlight, and hummed in the soil beneath her bare feet. From the very beginning, Luna perceived the universe as a delicate symphony of unseen patterns and gentle energies. While others dismissed her beliefs as eccentric or even laughable, Luna saw herself not as a misfit, but as a translator of nature's quiet language. She had a fondness for stargazing, and it went far beyond idle curiosity. At night, when others were preparing for bed or sneaking snacks from the kitchens, Luna would be found perched on the astronomy tower, wrapped in a worn cloak that smelled of lavender and parchment. Her eyes, wide and silvery, gazed upward with the kind of devotion usually reserved for prayer. She watched the stars not just for their beauty, but because she believed they were ancient friends, keepers of secrets and rhythms too old for textbooks. Luna once told Ginny, in a voice barely above a whisper, "They move like thoughts, like memories. If you listen long enough, they begin to hum your name." Even the professors found her remarks puzzling, particularly when she spoke in metaphors no one understood. Yet in her own strange way, Luna was more grounded in reality than many of her peers. Her understanding of the universe was emotional, intuitive, rooted in the interconnectedness between living things. She did not need to read about the magical properties of moonstone to sense its resonance with emotion and dreams. She wore moonstone earrings not for fashion, but to keep her heart aligned with the tides. Her fellow Ravenclaws would chuckle behind her back, but Luna remained unfazed. She wasn't seeking approval, she was seeking harmony. Her beliefs often bled into her observations of people. Luna had a habit of making odd yet profound statements that lingered in the mind long after she walked away. When Harry was grieving Sirius, she told him, "The things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect." Many dismissed it as another Lunaism, but Harry remembered it later when the resurrection stone returned images of his loved ones during the final battle. That phrase stayed with him like a charm woven from starlight and kindness. Luna's room in the Ravenclaw Tower was a sanctuary of celestial wonder. While most students decorated with Quidditch posters or magical creature sketches, Luna had transformed her walls into a living night sky. The ceiling was the centerpiece, a swirling mural of deep blues and purples scattered with shimmering stars. Among them, 5 constellations stood out, subtle portraits of Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, and Neville, rendered in silver thread that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Each figure was woven with care, surrounded by orbits of light as if to protect and illuminate them. It was her quiet way of saying thank you for their friendship, for their kindness, for believing in her when others did not. Her affinity for natural elements extended even into her magical practices. Luna didn't cast spells the way others did. Her wand work was fluid, gentle, more like conducting music than enforcing will. She believed spells were conversations with nature, not commands. "If you force magic," she once said, "it bites, but if you ask it like an old friend, it listens." Her results in Charms class were inconsistent by Hogwarts standards, yet Professor Flitwick privately confessed that Luna's spells had a unique delicacy and charm he had never seen before. Magical creatures, too, held a special place in her heart, not because they were rare or exotic, but because they were misunderstood. Her belief in the existence of crumple-horned snorkax was not based on empirical evidence, but on faith, on the belief that the unknown deserves curiosity, not ridicule. When Hagrid introduced Thestrals during their 5th year, Luna wasn't frightened. She saw beauty in them immediately, recognizing not just their form, but their meaning. She understood death not as an end, but as a change of energy, a return to the stars. The cosmic themes of Luna's inner world weren't just aesthetic, they mirrored her emotional compass. She often spoke of lunar cycles as if they dictated mood and memory, claiming that people's thoughts waxed and waned just like the moon. When Hermione scoffed at the idea, Luna smiled softly and pointed to the tides. "The moon pulls the ocean," she said. "Why wouldn't it pull at us too?" It was this merging of science and myth, nature and belief, that gave Luna her ethereal depth. She was a dreamer, but one rooted in patterns older than civilization. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Luna's actions spoke louder than her oddities ever could. She fought with ferocity and grace, guiding Harry through the chaos when he needed clarity. She led him to Ravenclaw Tower, where the lost diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw rested, a key Horcrux. In that moment, Luna's deep knowledge of her house's heritage, paired with her emotional intelligence, became a compass. She was not just a seer of stars, she was a beacon for others lost in darkness. After the war, Luna continued her journey through nature and mystery, becoming a magizoologist. She travelled far and wide, not for fame or acclaim, but to learn the stories of creatures no one else would study. Her reports weren't just scientific, they read like poems. She wrote of the singing habits of diricals during meteor showers and how mooncalves danced best when greeted with silence. Her notes were adorned with stardust and pressed flowers, sent home with letters to her father that began with, "The stars were kind to me today." Her friendship with Neville Longbottom deepened in those post-war years, grounded in shared quiet strength. They often exchanged letters that spoke of soil and stars, of healing gardens and celestial alignments. Neville, now a herbology professor, appreciated Luna's insights on how lunar phases could affect magical plant growth. "The fluxweed bloomed unusually early this year," he once wrote. "I think it was the waxing crescent, just like you said." Luna replied with a sketch of the plant beside a new constellation she'd named in his honor. Though she never sought leadership, Luna became a kind of spiritual guide in the new Hogwarts. Students came to her for answers they couldn't find in textbooks. She would sit with them beneath the enchanted sky in her old room, now preserved in her absence, and teach them how to listen to silence, to trust dreams, to draw magic from the simple act of noticing a bird's flight or a flower's closing at dusk. She taught them, without ever intending to teach, that wonder is not childish, it is sacred. Her collection of writings, Whispers from the Stars, became an underground favorite among magical youth. Not because it held spell instructions or dueling strategies, but because it reminded readers that the world is alive with quiet magic. In one entry she wrote, "We are all made of stardust, every wand, every whisper. When we stop seeing the stars, we stop seeing each other." It was a sentence passed from hand to hand like a blessing, written in Luna's unmistakable looping script. Though often dismissed as odd, Luna's presence was a kind of healing. She offered a perspective not rooted in logic, but in love, in trust that the world, chaotic as it might be, still moves according to a deeper rhythm. She saw people not as they presented themselves, but as they truly were, often before they even knew themselves. She recognized Hermione's buried kindness, Ron's hidden intelligence, Ginny's fire, Harry's sorrow, Neville's courage. And in return they grew to see her not as a lunatic, but as a lantern. Luna once created a star map where each of her friends was assigned a constellation. The thread that connected them wasn't light, but experience. Each memory a star, each act of kindness a line between them. When she gave the map to Harry, she said only, "So you'll never be lost." He kept it in his trunk long after the war, long after the names in it became legends. On nights when he missed the past, he would unfold the map, find his own star, and follow the lines to the others. It was in Luna's quiet rituals, her nighttime walks, her whispered thanks to the wind, her habit of leaving wildflowers on windowsills, that she practiced her true magic. Not the kind that required wands or incantations, but the kind that turned life itself into a spell. Those who took the time to watch her closely often found themselves changed. They began noticing bird calls, the curve of the moon, the hush before sunrise. Luna's presence reminded people that the world was not only magical, it was speaking. She believed that magic was strongest where nature was left undisturbed. In the Forbidden Forest, where she often wandered alone, she claimed to feel the heartbeat of the earth. "It's like it's breathing," she once said, pressing her palm to the bark of an ancient tree. "You just have to be very, very still." The centaurs respected her, sensing that she approached their sacred ground with reverence, not intrusion. They spoke with her as they spoke with few humans, recognizing a kinship that went beyond words. Her belongings were few, but each had meaning. A stone she found beside the great lake, shaped like a teardrop. A quill made from a rune spore feather. A bottle of captured moonlight which she claimed helped her sleep when the stars were sad. Her most treasured item was a scrap of parchment that read, in her mother's handwriting, "Love is a kind of gravity." It was this belief that affection, like the moon, pulls us to each other, that defined Luna Lovegood more than any title ever could. Number 21, she never judged anyone. In her 4th year at Hogwarts, when the students gathered for the first meeting of Dumbledore's army in the Room of Requirement, most of them brought expectations, insecurities, or ego. Luna Lovegood brought only openness. Standing barefoot on the cold floor, her wand tucked behind her ear, she didn't question the legitimacy of Harry Potter's story about Voldemort's return like Seamus Finnegan did. She didn't demand proof or scoff at the danger. Luna accepted it with the same serenity with which she accepted everything. And though Hermione Granger whispered to Harry that Luna was a bit mad, Luna never responded with hurt or resentment. She simply smiled in her dreamy way and watched the world unfold, even when the world ridiculed her. Ravenclaws were often praised for their wit and logic, but Luna's intelligence didn't manifest through books or precise reasoning. It glowed quietly in her unshakable belief in the unknown. She believed in nargles and crumple-horned snorkax, but she also believed in people. She believed Harry even when the Daily Prophet tried to portray him as delusional. She believed Neville Longbottom could be brave long before anyone else noticed. She saw what others missed, not because she looked harder, but because she never looked away with judgment. When others were busy fitting into boxes, Gryffindor courage, Slytherin cunning, Hufflepuff loyalty, Luna simply remained herself, boxless and calm. During the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, when spells flew and chaos reigned, Luna fought alongside Harry, Neville, Ginny, Ron and Hermione without hesitation. She was only a 4th-year student, but her composure during that fight stood in contrast to the panic around her. She didn't raise her wand with a desire to hurt. She didn't cast spells with vengeance. Her spells were precise, clear, protective. In a battle fueled by fear and anger, Luna brought something rare: grace. Even when she was knocked unconscious during the skirmish, no bitterness touched her heart. After the battle, she comforted her friends instead of seeking comfort. When Gryffindors scoffed at her Spectre Specs or Ravenclaws hid their giggles at her upside-down quibbler, Luna continued wearing what she loved and reading what inspired her. She never asked others to understand her. She only asked them to let her be. And even when they didn't, even when classmates hid her belongings or whispered behind her back, Luna didn't retaliate. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when Harry found her in the Hogwarts Express compartment reading The Quibbler upside down and wearing a necklace made of butterbeer corks, she welcomed him with genuine joy. "I enjoyed the meetings too. It was like having friends," she said softly. No bitterness, no sarcasm, just gentle truth. Her words, simple yet profound, held a mirror to how deeply loneliness could sit in a person and how gracefully one could carry it. There's something unbearably human in the way Luna coped with isolation. Most students would have changed their clothes, their walk, their voice, anything to avoid mockery, but Luna never changed to meet the approval of others. She moved through the castle like a ghost in the daylight, untouched by the rules of popularity. Her kindness wasn't flashy. It wasn't a quest. She didn't befriend people to gain something in return. When she comforted Harry after the death of Sirius Black, she didn't try to explain the pain away. She merely stood with him, reminding him that loved ones are not truly gone if we remember them. The things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect. It was Luna's way of saying, "I see you and I understand." Most Hogwarts students, even those in Gryffindor or Hufflepuff, feared vulnerability. But Luna embraced it. She never wore a mask. She never raised walls. That was her strength and also why she was misunderstood. Draco Malfoy once laughed in her face and called her a loony, yet she didn't flinch. When Ron teased her openly, she looked at him with that unchanging, wide-eyed gaze, not with reproach, but with patience. She gave people the time to grow past their ignorance, and in that way she always remained one step ahead, morally, emotionally, spiritually. Even in grief, Luna bore no malice. Her mother had died in front of her during a magical experiment when Luna was 9. Most children would have crumbled. Luna's grief took a quieter path. She accepted that there were things beyond her control, and instead of dwelling in what was lost, she lived in what remained. The world to Luna was full of strange beauty, rackspurts and moon frogs, invisible creatures and unlikely friends. She chose to find wonder where others found emptiness. It wasn't delusion, it was resilience. When the wizarding world broke into factions during the Second Wizarding War, and the Ministry labelled Harry and Dumbledore traitors, Luna never aligned herself with power or popularity. She continued attending the DA meetings in secret, risking punishment to stand for what was right. She didn't boast about it. She didn't seek recognition. She simply did what was right, and she never condemned those who were too afraid to do the same. When Marietta Edgecombe betrayed the DA, Luna didn't shame her. She didn't participate in gossip. She let silence carry her truth, letting others speak without her judgment clouding the air. During her captivity in the Malfoy Manor, Luna comforted others. Mr. Ollivander, tortured and broken, found solace in her voice. Dean Thomas, half-starved and frightened, found steadiness in her company. Luna could have cried, she could have given in to despair. Instead, she remained gentle, making the dark dungeon feel like a room of light. Her strength wasn't in blasting curses, but in holding on to her essence, even when stripped of her freedom. That is the purest form of courage, to remain yourself in a world that's trying to break you into something else. When Dobby died rescuing them, Luna was the first to close his eyes and whisper a blessing over him. There. Now he could be sleeping. In that small gesture, there was no spectacle, no applause, just reverence. Luna treated life and death with the same soft awe. She didn't rank beings based on species or fame. To her, a house elf deserved as much dignity as a headmaster. She never said this out loud. She lived it. At Hogwarts during the final stand against Voldemort, Luna didn't fight for glory or revenge. She stood in the Great Hall beside Harry, Neville and Ginny, not because she sought to prove herself, but because it was where she needed to be. She stunned Death Eaters, saved her friends, and still found time to guide Harry to the Ravenclaw common room when he needed to find the lost diadem. In the middle of a war, when urgency turned people harsh, Luna remained calm. When Cho Chang offered to help Harry, Ginny snapped in jealousy, but Luna simply said, "I'll go with you." Not to compete, just to help. After the war, Luna's fame grew because of her connection to the Chosen One. Yet, she never tried to build a career off her reputation. She became a magizoologist, studying strange and often imaginary creatures, wandering the world without seeking applause. She didn't become an aura, she didn't join politics. She followed her heart, an act more daring than most acts of war. And though many still didn't understand her, Luna didn't ask to be understood. She only asked to be believed. Even when she gave a speech at Bill and Fleur's wedding, an impromptu toast about love and oddities, she wasn't mocking or eccentric for the sake of charm. She spoke of invisible strings between people and the magic of looking beyond appearances. Some guests laughed politely, but those who listened closely realized she was right. Luna always was, but she never said, "I told you so." Perhaps the most powerful evidence of Luna's non-judgmental heart was her relationship with Xenophilius Lovegood. Her father, often branded as a conspiracy-driven eccentric, published controversial ideas in The Quibbler. Many children might have grown ashamed, but Luna adored him. When he betrayed Harry to the Death Eaters in a moment of weakness, Luna didn't condemn him. She forgave him. She understood his fear, his desperation, his love. Luna's forgiveness wasn't naive. It was the rare kind born of emotional maturity far beyond her years. In the epilogue world, where others settled into careers or families with clean-cut endings, Luna's future remained slightly open, just like her mind. She married Rolf Scamander, grandson of Newt Scamander, and together they searched the wilds for unseen wonders. Their love wasn't born of social standing or shared trauma. It was a quiet meeting of two open souls. Luna didn't demand perfection. She only asked for truth. She taught her children the same thing she lived by, that it's okay to be different, to believe in things others don't, to love people even when they're wrong. Not once in the series did Luna shame another student for being scared, cruel, petty, or dismissive. She didn't join in ridicule or push back with meanness. Her defiance was her kindness. Her rebellion was her acceptance. In a world shaped by fear, Luna's refusal to judge became the bravest magic of all. In the world of Harry Potter, where judgment runs rampant, from blood status to house rivalries, Luna Lovegood was a rare presence. She reminded us that kindness isn't weakness, and that staying true to oneself, even when mocked, is the quietest and strongest form of resistance. Luna didn't need a prophecy or a chosen status. She didn't wield fame. She wielded compassion, and compassion, in a war of ideologies, was the rarest spell of all. Even at Dumbledore's funeral, when silence fell heavy over Hogwarts, Luna was among those who didn't cry loudly or wear visible grief. She sat quietly beside Neville, holding a single flower. She didn't need to express sorrow to prove it. Her way of mourning was remembering. Her loyalty was presence. That's who she had always been. And so in a world that labels, judges, mocks, and separates, Luna Lovegood remained unchanged. Not because she refused to see the world as it was, but because she chose to see what it could be. Number 22. She fought in the Battle of Hogwarts. When the skies above Hogwarts cracked open with lightning and the tremors of impending war, Luna Lovegood stood not in retreat but in quiet readiness. She had always been an enigma, a girl who spoke of creatures no one else believed in, who wore butterbeer cork necklaces and saw the world through a veil of mystery. But when the final battle approached, Luna became something more, a soldier, not in armor, but in conviction. She didn't raise her wand for glory or vengeance. She raised it for the hope of a world where kindness, imagination, and belief could survive the storm. The Battle of Hogwarts was not simply a clash of wands and spells. It was a reckoning of hearts, and Luna's heart was unflinching. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione returned to the castle seeking Rowena Ravenclaw's lost diadem, it was Luna who remembered what so many others had forgotten. "There's a lost diadem," she had said, "belonging to Rowena Ravenclaw. It's meant to enhance wisdom." And when others doubted, Luna believed. She led Harry to Helena Ravenclaw's ghost, the Grey Lady, whose secrets helped unlock the mystery of the final Horcrux. Without Luna's intervention, the war may have taken a darker path. Her soft voice had power because it was rooted in truth. There was a purity to Luna's bravery that did not scream or thunder, but rather glowed with quiet intensity. She fought not because she hated Voldemort, but because she loved the world he tried to destroy. When the doors of the Room of Requirement opened for the last time, she was among those who welcomed Harry into a sanctuary that had once sheltered their rebellion. The DA, Dumbledore's army, was more than a name to her. It was a promise made in whispers during dark nights, in stolen moments of laughter between fear and flight. And now that promise demanded everything. In the room of requirement, as the trio searched for the diadem, Luna stood guard. She was not alone. Beside her were Neville Longbottom and Ginny Weasley, the children who had become warriors in the shadow of tyranny. Luna's wand moved with grace and precision when the Carrows attempted to enter. She cast jinxes not with hatred, but with necessity. Her loyalty was unshaken. When the fiend fire consumed the room, summoned recklessly by Crabbe, it was Luna who helped Harry escape, grasping a broken broomstick in the chaos and guiding them out of the inferno. Fire reflected in her silvery eyes, but fear never rooted her. Later, as the battle exploded across the halls, courtyards, and towers of the school she had once wandered dreamily, Luna became a sentinel of courage. In the great hall, she stood beside Professor Sprout, flinging dangerous plants at Death Eaters with the expertise she had learned from countless afternoons spent among magical flora. Mandrakes, Devil's Snare, and Venomous Tentacula became her unlikely allies. She was, after all, a Ravenclaw. Curiosity was her weapon, and knowledge her shield. In that moment, she became not just a student, but a guardian of Hogwarts. When Fred Weasley fell, when Remus and Tonks lay motionless on the floor, the war's cost grew unbearably real. But Luna did not falter. She stayed by the side of the wounded, shielding younger students, guiding them to safety when the walls began to crumble. Even as spells arced across the air like lightning, she moved with calm purpose. Her voice, normally lilting and otherworldly, carried unexpected command. When she told a frightened first year to hide behind a pillar, they listened. There was something in her gaze that reassured even the most broken soul. And still, her most crucial moment came when Harry stood paralyzed, surrounded by the aftermath of loss. It was Luna who spoke to him in the Great Hall, not to force him into action, but to gently remind him of what must still be done. "If I were you, Harry," she said, "I'd go to the Ravenclaw common room." Her intuition, subtle and precise, cracked open the final clues. She did not scream or plead. She simply saw, understood, and acted. In a world ruled by chaos, Luna's clarity was rare. She had always seen beyond the visible. Thestrals, invisible to most, had been companions to her long before others noticed them. Death was no stranger to her. When her mother died, Luna had learned the language of loss, and this language now whispered through the battlefield. She moved like someone who knew that life was fragile and therefore sacred. She protected it not with fire, but with light. Even when the darkness surged around them, Luna illuminated corners no one else could reach. After Harry surrendered himself in the forest, and the news of his death rippled through the castle like poison, many fell into despair. But Luna did not. She believed, not blindly, but with a deeper sense of possibility. She had always believed in the improbable. Why not believe in Harry's return? Why not believe that the war wasn't over yet? When he emerged alive, Luna was among the first to stand again. Her wand lit the air in a brilliant silver streak. Her spells did not falter. In the final confrontation, as Voldemort and his followers clashed with the remnants of hope, Luna stood near the threshold of the Great Hall. She fought beside Seamus Finnegan and Ernie Macmillan. Spells flew like hail, but Luna's focus never wavered. She used her wand like a quill, writing poetry in the storm, each movement exact, each strike measured. She stunned a Death Eater who had cornered Lavender Brown. She duelled with Travers and dodged a killing curse by mere inches. But her mind stayed sharp, her feet grounded. She did not tremble. When Bellatrix Lestrange targeted Ginny Weasley, Luna was one of the three witches, along with Hermione and Mrs. Weasley, who charged forward in defense. Together they created a barrier, spells flashing in every direction. Bellatrix was deadly, mad with triumph, but Luna did not hesitate. She moved in unison with Hermione, their combined magic repelling attack after attack. She was not faster or stronger, but she was unwavering. That steadiness helped hold the line. Even after Voldemort fell, when many collapsed in exhaustion or grief, Luna remained alert. She tended to the injured, offered comfort to the bereaved. She sat beside Professor Flitwick and conjured calming spells for those in shock. Her magic had always been unique, tinged with strangeness, but now it became a balm. She walked past bodies and broken stone, speaking softly to those who had seen too much. She helped a boy find his sister. She whispered to the ghosts who lingered. What made Luna's heroism extraordinary was not its loudness, but its consistency. She never wavered in who she was, even in the heat of war. Her eccentricities did not vanish. They became part of her strength. While others doubted, she believed. While others hesitated, she stepped forward. In a world divided between black and white, Luna was the color in between, the spark that reminded everyone of what they were fighting for. She never asked for recognition. After the battle, as the survivors gathered, Luna stood quietly among the crowd. Her hair was tousled, her robes scorched, her eyes tired, but she smiled. It was the smile of someone who had known sorrow and had chosen love anyway. She didn't speak of her victories, she simply offered others her hand, her silence, her company. For Luna, the war had never been about defeating evil. It had been about protecting goodness. Even in the years after the battle, those who remembered that night often spoke of her. Luna Lovegood, said Professor McGonagall once, fought like a dreamer who had finally awakened. Kingsley Shacklebolt called her the calm in the storm. She never gave speeches, never wrote memoirs. She tended to magical creatures, studied the world, married Rolf Scamander, and lived gently. But to those who had seen her during the Battle of Hogwarts, she remained unforgettable. Her name might not have filled the headlines, but her presence filled the halls. Students told tales of the Ravenclaw who fought like the moon, quiet, shining, constant. They passed down stories of how she stood beside Neville, of how she held Ginny's hand when Fred died, of how she conjured a Patronus shaped like a hare, leaping through fire. And in every version there was the same message. Luna Lovegood did not change to face war. She brought herself into it, and that was enough. The bravery Luna displayed during the final hours of Voldemort's reign was not accidental. It was the result of a life lived in belief, in openness, in understanding things others ignored. Her faith in Harry had never faltered, not when he was vilified, not when he was presumed dead. Her loyalty was unshaken not because she had no fear, but because she had already made peace with what truly mattered. She did not need to be the loudest, she only needed to be present. In the end, when the history books were written and statues raised, Luna's name was often tucked in the margins, but those who truly knew the story understood. She had been there when it counted, she had fought without hate, stood without pride, and loved without condition. She had looked into the heart of chaos and seen not monsters, but the chance to protect what was beautiful. That was her legacy. And perhaps the most powerful truth was this: Luna Lovegood, in all her dreamy, ethereal strangeness, never sought to be a warrior. She simply became one when the world demanded it. And when the battle was over, she returned not to normalcy but to wonder, because for Luna, wonder had always been stronger than fear. And in the ashes of Hogwarts, she reminded everyone what it meant to truly believe. Number 23, Harry named his daughter after her. Of all the characters who passed through Harry Potter's turbulent life, few left a mark as quiet yet enduring as Luna Lovegood. Strange, dreamy, and often mocked, she was never the most obvious ally, but sometimes the people who stand beside you in silence become your greatest sources of strength. That's why, though it was never written on the page, J.K. Rowling later revealed something remarkable. Harry named his daughter Lily Luna, not only after his beloved mother Lily Evans, but also in honor of Luna Lovegood. This subtle tribute carried more meaning than 1,000 grand gestures, for Luna represented something few others ever offered Harry: faith, even in his darkest hour. When the trio was breaking apart and even Ron had abandoned them, Luna was not there physically, but her unwavering loyalty had already made its mark. Her presence at the Department of Mysteries, where she fought bravely alongside Harry against the Death Eaters, was one of the first times Harry saw how deeply she was willing to risk her life for him. It wasn't bravado, it was conviction. "You're just as sane as I am," she once told him, without irony, offering him the validation he didn't even know he needed. While others questioned his mind, Luna offered acceptance without condition. Luna's belief in Harry never came with expectations. She didn't idolize him the way Colin Creevey did, nor did she hold him responsible for saving the world. Her support was calm, consistent, and pure. At Dumbledore's army meetings in the Room of Requirement, she never missed a session. She learned spells diligently with no ambition for fame. She stood shoulder to shoulder with more aggressive fighters like Neville Longbottom and Ginny Weasley, but Luna never needed to prove anything. She was there because she believed in Harry. When Dobby died and they buried him without magic, Luna's actions were simple but transformative. She gently closed Dobby's eyes and whispered, "There, now he could be sleeping." It was a small moment, yet it said so much about who she was. In the midst of grief, fear, and war, she brought dignity and peace. Harry saw this. He noticed everything. Luna had a way of reminding him that even in death there was room for kindness. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Luna did not seek the spotlight. She fought fiercely, defended others, and helped Harry find what he needed most: clarity. It was Luna who suggested he speak to the ghost of Helena Ravenclaw, unlocking the final clue to locating the lost Horcrux. This wasn't a coincidence. It was her insight, her quiet wisdom, her way of seeing truths that others overlooked. In those moments, Luna was not just a friend, she was essential. What made Luna extraordinary was not just her loyalty, but the timing of it. Luna appeared in Harry's life when he was most vulnerable, after Cedric's death during his 5th year, when the Ministry was painting him as unstable. Most students avoided him. Some mocked him. Even Hermione and Ron struggled to understand what he was going through. But Luna, unfazed by ridicule herself, offered him a sense of calm that no one else could. She believed him when others didn't. That kind of faith matters. That kind of faith stays with you. Naming a child is one of the most personal choices a person can make. It's a legacy, a wish, a memory cast into the future. Harry could have chosen countless people to honor. There were mentors, heroes, even fallen comrades. But naming his daughter Lily Luna wasn't just about 2 people he loved. It was about 2 women who shaped his soul, his mother who gave her life for him, and Luna who gave him peace in life. Ginny too understood the meaning behind the name. She had fought beside Luna, had shared a cell with her in the dungeons of Malfoy Manor, had trusted her with her life. Naming their daughter after Luna wasn't just Harry's decision. It was a mutual acknowledgement of someone who had quietly changed them both. In a world that worshipped glory, Luna had offered grace. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when Harry walked with Luna to the train after Dumbledore's funeral, she was the only one who didn't try to comfort him with lies. She didn't promise that things would be okay. Instead, she told him a story about losing her own shoes and how the Nargles had taken them. It seemed bizarre, but Harry laughed for the first time in days. She gave him something no one else could in that moment: relief through absurdity. That laugh meant more than words of sympathy ever could. Luna's impact on Harry was spiritual rather than strategic. She wasn't part of the inner circle making tactical decisions. But her influence was the reason Harry could endure. In the Order of the Phoenix, during the chaos of the battle at the Ministry, she was the one who remained calm, who guided others, who held the group together when fear could have torn them apart. Her steadiness was more valuable than any spell. There is something sacred about those who stand beside you when it's inconvenient, who choose you when it costs them something. Luna never needed to be persuaded to join Harry's fight. She chose it instinctively. She didn't follow him because he was the chosen one. She followed him because she recognized his heart, even when it was broken. That's the kind of loyalty that stays with a man forever. After the war, the wizarding world changed. The names of heroes were inscribed on memorials, their stories retold. But Luna never sought that kind of recognition. She became a naturalist, studying magical creatures. She married Rolf Scamander and lived a life of curiosity and wonder. Yet for Harry, her name lingered not just in memory, but in the name of his daughter, a gentle reminder of who had helped him hold on to hope. Lily Luna Potter carried a weight of symbolism. Lily, the mother who gave everything, Luna, the friend who gave perspective. It was as if Harry had stitched together the two sources of light in his darkest hours. His daughter bore their names, and through her, their influence would live on. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a public announcement. It was, like Luna herself, subtle and profound. Even Albus Dumbledore in his portrait might have smiled at the gesture, for it showed that Harry understood the value of the unseen. Not just the warriors who stood on the front lines, but those who offered shelter when the storm hit hardest. Luna Lovegood had done that for him, time and again, without fanfare. She had believed in Thestrals, in crumple-horned Snorkax, and most importantly, in... Harry had learned, through Luna, that believing in something others can't see isn't madness, it's magic. When he saw the Thestrals for the first time, he had thought himself alone. But Luna showed him that visibility is not the only mark of truth. She helped him accept his trauma without shame. That's not a gift one forgets, that's a gift one honors with a name. In a world rebuilt after war, it's tempting to focus only on those who wore armor. But the legacy of healing, of mystery, of unshakable belief mattered just as much. Luna was the compass when the map was torn. She never needed a spotlight to matter. She was the moonlight in the forest, soft but guiding. Harry knew that. That's why he chose her name. That's why it mattered. Even when his children asked about their names, as children do, Harry would have spoken of courage and sacrifice. But when Lily asked about Luna, his voice might have softened. He might have said that sometimes the bravest people are the ones who remind you to smile, to see the world differently, to believe in yourself when no one else does. And that's why her name shines beside Lily's. In a fandom obsessed with ships, rivalries and grand battles, it's easy to forget the small moments, the laugh in grief, the quiet word in chaos, the eyes that see past the public mask. Luna Lovegood was never just the eccentric girl with radish earrings. She was the soul who taught the boy who lived how to keep living. That deserves more than applause. It deserves remembrance. And so even though the books ended, even though the epilogue said little, the name Lily Luna remains one of the most powerful epilogues of all, not just to the war, but to the lessons Harry learned. He survived because of love, he endured because of truth, and he thrived because of people like Luna Lovegood, who saw who he was and never asked him to be anyone else. Number 24, she didn't trust official narratives. Luna Lovegood had never been the kind of girl to accept a story simply because it came wrapped in confidence and authority. Long before she ever set foot in Hogwarts, she had been raised in a household that thrived on skepticism. The Lovegood home in Ottery St. Catchpole was cluttered not only with strange artifacts and enchanted trinkets, but with stacks of the Quibbler, her father's life's work, and in many ways her own intellectual inheritance. While the rest of the wizarding world scoffed at the magazine's wild headlines and conspiracy-laced columns, Luna read it as gospel. But not because she believed everything it printed, rather it had taught her one essential lesson: always ask who benefits from the official version of events. Her classmates at Hogwarts rarely understood this way of thinking. To most, Luna seemed airy, detached, or worse, unhinged. She wore radish earrings, read The Quibbler upside down, and spoke with absolute certainty about creatures no one else had ever seen. But what her peers mistook for delusion was in fact a deeply ingrained habit of thought. Luna questioned because it was the only way she knew to find the truth beneath the surface. And when the tides of war began to rise, it was precisely this skepticism that allowed her to see danger coming long before others did. During Harry's 5th year, the wizarding world was embroiled in denial. Lord Voldemort had returned, yet the Ministry of Magic bent all its efforts to claiming he had not. Students were told to ignore the growing darkness. Newspapers parroted the Ministry's claims. Even Hogwarts, once a sanctuary of learning, became a battleground of misinformation under Dolores Umbridge's iron grip. But Luna never once wavered. "You're just as sane as I am," she told Harry with a dreamy look after he confessed he could see the Thestrals pulling the carriages. It was not a joke. She was signaling solidarity, an awareness of truth beyond the visible. It was Luna, not Hermione or even Ron, who accepted Harry's claims about Cedric's death and Voldemort's return without hesitation. She didn't need convincing. Her belief was not born out of loyalty or fear, but from years of conditioning herself to examine truth on her own terms. "I believe he who must not be named is back," she said plainly when others whispered. For Luna, questioning the Ministry was not rebellion. It was common sense. She had seen the institution twist narratives before, discrediting those who didn't serve its agenda. This tendency to probe deeper made her a natural ally to Dumbledore's army. While others joined the secret group out of defiance or camaraderie, Luna joined because she saw through the lies. She understood, even before most students, that the system meant to protect them was now compromised. In the Order of the Phoenix, when the Ministry refused to teach defensive magic, Luna didn't merely complain. She learned, she trained. And when the time came, she fought at the Department of Mysteries. Not because she had something to prove, but because she had known, all along, that the stakes were real. One of Luna's most telling moments comes when she talks about her mother, who died experimenting with magic. Most students might have internalized fear or bitterness from such a loss, but Luna, shaped by grief and curiosity in equal measure, turned it into insight. "Things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect," she said. That quiet remark captures her philosophy. The truth is not always found in direct answers or official records. Sometimes it hides in overlooked places, in whispers, in dreams, in what others call madness. Years before Rufus Scrimgeour tried to paint Harry as unstable, Luna already distrusted the Ministry's use of the press. She knew how power could bend narratives. It wasn't paranoia, it was pattern recognition. When Xenophilius Lovegood published an article defending Harry and naming the Death Eaters infiltrating the Ministry, he was quickly punished. The Death Eaters kidnapped Luna to ensure his silence. That kidnapping was not just a plot point, it was proof of the price one paid for telling truths others refused to hear. Even in captivity at Malfoy Manor, Luna's clarity remained intact. She comforted Ollivander and kept her composure. She wasn't surprised that the powerful feared her. What frightened them wasn't her wand or her name, it was her mind. She didn't break because she had never allowed her beliefs to be dictated by fear or popular consensus. The same girl who had once been mocked for chasing Nargles was now withstanding psychological warfare in the heart of enemy territory. Later, when she returned to Hogwarts and helped reinstate Dumbledore's army, Luna again demonstrated that her so-called eccentricity was a mask for deep insight. She saw Hogwarts not just as a school, but as a microcosm of the larger world, and in both she believed that silence in the face of corruption was complicity. She had no interest in being politically correct or socially accepted. She believed in doing what was right, not what was convenient. Her attendance at Bill and Fleur's wedding also highlights her instinctive understanding of danger. While others toasted and danced, Luna remained attuned to the shifting air. It was she who noticed Harry's disguise and greeted him knowingly. Her gaze always saw more than it should, not through magic, but through discipline. She had trained herself over a lifetime of doubt and inquiry to observe the cracks in every facade. One of the most understated but powerful examples of Luna's worldview appears in Deathly Hallows when she discusses the Resurrection Stone. While many were consumed by the idea of defeating death, Luna approached it with acceptance. Her belief in the afterlife, in spiritual connections, was not rooted in religion or dogma, but in a personal mythology shaped by loss and wonder. It was another way in which she challenged dominant narratives, by embracing death as a transformation, not an end. Her behavior at Shell Cottage after her escape from Malfoy Manor further reveals the depth of her thought. She doesn't speak much of her suffering. Instead, she listens, she draws, she tends to the wounded. For Luna, understanding the world wasn't about having all the answers. It was about asking the right questions and sitting in the silence that follows. That patience, that willingness to live in uncertainty was her greatest strength. When Harry visits her home later, he is struck by the murals on her bedroom walls. Portraits of him, Ron, Hermione, Neville, and Ginny, each connected with golden chains. Luna had understood something essential, that friendship, truth, and courage were interlinked. "We're all still here," she had said when the world around them was falling apart. That room was not a shrine to heroism, but a map of meaning, a record of who stood firm when illusions crumbled. Luna never sought the spotlight. She didn't crave recognition. Yet in the final battle at Hogwarts, she proved again that her skepticism was not mere philosophy. She fought because she had long understood what was at stake. When she urged Harry to think clearly and suggested he talk to the Grey Lady, she did so not as a sidekick, but as someone who could see the path even when others could not. Her mind, so often dismissed as whimsical, was one of the clearest in the room. Even her later career as a magizoologist speaks to her unending curiosity. While others settled into predictable roles, Luna chose a path of discovery. She sought out creatures others denied existed, not to prove her father right, but because she believed that truth is bigger than consensus. Her wedding to Rolf Scamander, the grandson of Newt Scamander, was not just romantic fate, it was symbolic. Two seekers, devoted to the unknown, building a life together beyond the bounds of common sense. To many, Luna's skepticism looked like madness, but her record proves otherwise. She was right about the Ministry, she was right about Voldemort, she was right about needing to fight. In every critical moment, Luna chose inquiry over obedience, conscience over comfort. "Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure," said the inscription at Ravenclaw Tower. Few embodied it as fully as Luna Lovegood. Her approach to magic itself was non-traditional. She believed in the interconnectedness of things, that creatures, spells, emotions, and destinies were woven together in ways the textbooks could never explain. She once claimed that raxperts caused confused thinking. Though no one ever confirmed their existence, the metaphor was apt. She understood that unseen forces, trauma, bias, propaganda, cloud the mind more than any spell could. It is easy to overlook Luna in the grand tale of Harry Potter. She was not part of the original trio, she did not destroy a Horcrux, she never led a rebellion, but her impact was quiet and enduring. She showed that bravery isn't always loud and wisdom isn't always conventional. She reminded readers and characters alike that questioning authority is not cynicism. It is a necessary act of love for the truth. Years after the war, when Luna published her own essays on magical fauna and lost civilizations, readers began to realize that her father's magazine had planted deeper seeds than they thought. What began as the Quibbler's eccentric musings had given birth to a new way of thinking, one that embraced mystery without abandoning reason. Luna's legacy was not just in what she believed, but in how she believed, with courage, curiosity, and the refusal to surrender her mind to fear. And so, the girl who once chased invisible creatures through castle corridors ended up charting truths that others couldn't even see. She lived by a principle too rare in any world: magical or not, trust your questions more than someone else's answers. And when you feel alone in your doubts, remember that someone, somewhere, is reading The Quibbler and quietly beginning to understand. Number 25. She supported Neville when others didn't. In the dim corridors of Hogwarts, long before courage bloomed in full, there walked a boy with a toad in his pocket and tremors in his voice. Neville Longbottom, round-faced and often forgetful, was not the kind of student others turned to with admiration or even attention. He stumbled through spells, lost passwords to dormitory doors, and forgot which direction led to the Great Hall. Mocked by classmates and pitied by teachers, Neville's presence was more tolerated than embraced. Even among Gryffindors, those celebrated for their valor, he was rarely treated as an equal. But in a world so quick to judge, there was one person who looked past the clumsiness and awkwardness. One pair of silvery grey eyes saw the worth buried beneath his insecurities. Luna Lovegood. She was strange in her own right, branded Loony Lovegood by many students, whispered about in corners for her eccentric beliefs and dreamy gaze. But Luna never returned malice for mockery. She floated through the castle as if moved by some gentle wind of wisdom others failed to understand. Unlike the laughter Neville endured from Seamus or the snide looks from Draco, Luna never ridiculed him. In fact, it was Luna who once told him, "You're just as sane as I am," a phrase others found unsettling, but which for Neville meant belonging. Her calm acceptance and peculiar charm wrapped around him like a protective charm, more powerful than any he could cast with his wand. It wasn't that Luna made grand gestures or loud declarations. She simply listened. When Neville nervously explained that he'd lost Trevor again, she didn't laugh. She helped look for the toad. When he cast a misfiring, disarming charm in Dumbledore's army meetings, she clapped with soft, sincere approval. Luna didn't measure his value by precision or popularity. She saw something deeper, a potential Neville himself was too timid to acknowledge. During those gatherings in the Room of Requirement, surrounded by more confident spellcasters like Ginny or Hermione, Luna would stand near Neville, her presence like a quiet lighthouse in his churning sea of doubt. The others may have respected Neville, especially after he showed loyalty by joining the DA, but they didn't always understand how much he needed kindness, not just approval. Luna offered that without calculation. When Harry invited everyone to Hogsmeade and some were hesitant to bring Luna along, Neville never hesitated. In a rare moment of self-assurance, he insisted she be included. For once, he was standing up, not for himself, but for someone who had done the same for him in subtle, wordless ways. Their friendship was not loud, but it was real. It's not coincidence that Luna and Neville were often seen together in the later books. As the shadows deepened over Hogwarts, the two became quiet pillars for each other. When Dumbledore's army fell into hiding and the Carrows took control of the school, it was Neville who led the resistance. But he was not alone. Though Luna had been kidnapped and held prisoner in Malfoy Manor for much of that year, before her disappearance, she helped plant the seeds of hope in those darkened halls. And even after, the memory of her courage and the way she treated others lingered like a guiding spell in Neville's conscience. One poignant moment that cements their connection occurs when the DA coins are rediscovered. The charmed galleons used to communicate meeting times were kept by some as keepsakes. Neville kept his not just as a symbol of rebellion, but as a link to something meaningful, something pure. Luna had encouraged everyone to carry theirs, reminding them that unity was more powerful than fear. The coin became more than an artifact. It was a symbol of invisible threads Luna helped weave between them all, but especially with Neville. Even in the Battle of Hogwarts, there is something telling in how they stand together. While the books may not spotlight a dramatic conversation or exchange between them, their actions reveal a shared strength. Neville strikes down Nagini with the sword of Gryffindor, a moment of immense bravery. But one must remember, that sword only appears to those truly worthy. How did Neville become worthy? Through years of quiet transformation. Through the faith of friends like Luna, who, even when the world scoffed at them both, never withdrew their warmth. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, after the battle at the Department of Mysteries, Luna and Neville are two of the wounded. As they recover in the hospital wing, it's Luna who speaks softly about loss. She mentions her mother, who died when she was a child, not with bitterness, but with peace. Her words to Harry, "Things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end, if not always in the way we expect," could easily have been spoken to Neville as well. They both had lost so much, Neville, whose parents were tortured into madness, and Luna, whose mother's magical experiment ended in death. Their shared grief was unspoken, but deeply understood. During the Christmas holidays in their 6th year, while others returned home, both Luna and Neville remained at Hogwarts. In those quiet weeks they found solace in the empty halls and snowy grounds. Luna would read the Quibbler aloud, while Neville practiced non-verbal spells by the fire. Their companionship needed no performance. In Luna's presence, Neville didn't have to be brave. He could simply be, and that space of acceptance gave him the foundation to eventually become the brave leader of the DA. It is important to remember that Luna never sought popularity, and so her friendships were forged in truth, not utility. She didn't admire people because they were talented, beautiful, or famous. She admired sincerity. That is why she liked Neville. He was never false. He might have been clumsy, and yes, he often doubted himself, but he was genuine. Luna was drawn to that like a nargle to mistletoe. She saw in him a kindred spirit, one also out of sync with the mainstream, yet filled with quiet depth. Neville, in turn, found in Luna a mirror that didn't distort. When he looked at her, he didn't see oddness. He saw calmness, courage, and truth. For a boy who had lived most of his life under the weight of almosts, almost a squib, almost sorted into Hufflepuff, almost respected, Luna gave him the gift of already. Already enough. Already valuable. Already whole. After the war, when the dust settled and survivors tried to stitch their lives back together, Luna and Neville went different paths. He became a professor at Hogwarts, teaching herbology with steady hands and unwavering heart. She became a naturalist, traveling the world in search of magical creatures no one believed in. Though they didn't marry, Luna eventually wed Rolf Scamander. It doesn't diminish the depth of what they once shared. Not all love is romantic. Some friendships are far more enduring, rooted in a deep spiritual kinship. In J.K. Rowling's own words, she once considered pairing Neville and Luna, but realized they were too different in the long run. Still, she acknowledged their bond was real. They shared a great loyalty to Harry, Rowling noted, and a great capacity for believing in the unbelievable. That belief was not just in prophecies or magical beasts, but in each other. Their friendship challenges what we often assume about strength. It reminds us that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is being the one person who doesn't laugh, who doesn't turn away, who doesn't need you to be impressive to believe in your worth. Luna was that person for Neville, and in doing so, helped shape the man who would one day stand before Voldemort and defy him without trembling. In the tapestry of Hogwarts history, Neville's transformation from timid boy to heroic figure is often highlighted. But few threads are as essential as Luna's quiet faith in him. It is easy to cheer for someone when they've proven themselves. Luna cheered before he had. That is rare. That is magic. Not the kind taught in classrooms, but the kind that changes lives. When the portraits in the castle whisper old stories to new students, they may speak of the boy who lived, the brightest witch of her age, or the chosen one's brave friends. But somewhere in those stone walls, the spirit of Luna and Neville's bond lingers like a soft echo. The girl who never laughed at the boy everyone else did. The boy who found his strength in her quiet light. That story may never be carved in marble or etched in textbooks, but it lives in the spaces between spells, in the silences where true friendship is born. Number 26. She respected Muggle culture. Luna Lovegood wandered through the corridors of Hogwarts with an air that seemed both detached and deeply perceptive. She saw the world differently than most, not because she rejected logic, but because she welcomed wonder. While many in the wizarding world scoffed at Muggle customs or dismissed them as quaint or unnecessary, Luna, with her radish earrings and dreamy eyes, embraced what others ignored. She wasn't content with merely knowing how a spell worked. She wanted to know how a light bulb glowed, or why the moon seemed to shift its shape. In a society where the magical often overshadowed the mundane, Luna's curiosity about the Muggle world made her quietly revolutionary. Among her peers, especially within the confines of Ravenclaw Tower, she was sometimes the subject of ridicule. Other students whispered behind her back, labelling her as Loony Lovegood. Yet Luna never seemed to mind. It was perhaps this very detachment from the judgment of others that allowed her to explore what others wouldn't dare touch, including the Muggle sciences and arts. It wasn't uncommon to find her in the library, leafing through an astronomy book not written by a wizard, or contemplating the curious simplicity of Newton's laws. While some of her conclusions might have been imaginative, her intent was always pure. She sought truth, regardless of its origin. Her friendship with Hermione Granger offered her a gateway into the Muggle realm that few witches cared to explore. Hermione, born to two Muggle dentists, was a trove of scientific and cultural knowledge. Luna would often ask her what it meant when radios sent out waves, or how people could travel through the air without brooms. These weren't passing curiosities. They were genuine questions driven by awe. Unlike Arthur Weasley, whose fascination with Muggle objects was often mechanical, Luna's interest was poetic. She didn't just want to know what a television did, she wanted to know what dreams it projected into the minds of its watchers. During a long and quiet evening at the Burrow, Luna once remarked, almost as if to herself, that Muggle poetry was delightfully mysterious. She was holding a small book that Hermione had given her for Christmas, a pocket edition of Shakespeare's sonnets. She found herself entranced not by the rhyme or metre, but by the emotional layers hidden between the lines. She told Hermione that Sonnet 130, in which Shakespeare describes his lover, not in the usual poetic praise but with stark, earthly comparisons, was like an enchantment that dares to tell the truth. While she admitted she didn't understand every word, Luna believed that was part of its charm. Some things, she mused, are more magical when you don't understand them completely. When Professor Charity Burbage taught Muggle studies, Luna listened more attentively than anyone else. While most students considered it an easy subject, or worse, a joke, Luna treated it as a sacred window into another way of living. She took notes not for exams, but for reflection. Once, when discussing how Muggles use electricity to power cities, she stayed after class to ask Professor Burbage if such energy could interact with magical enchantments. The professor had no definitive answer, but Luna's eyes sparkled with the thought that two separate worlds might overlap in some unseen spectrum. Luna's fascination wasn't limited to academics. At a Quidditch match, when someone sneered that muggles couldn't even stay on a broom, Luna quietly replied that muggles had their own kind of flying. "Great metal birds," she said, referencing airplanes. When asked how that was possible without magic, she responded simply, "With belief, math, and patience." This wasn't sarcasm. Luna truly believed that muggles, in their own way, performed their own kind of magic. It was a belief rooted in empathy and wonder, not in condescension or superiority. Her room at her father's house bore traces of her eclectic interests. Amid the paintings of magical creatures and dangling wind chimes enchanted to sing lullabies, there were muggle postcards, images of famous buildings, snapshots of forests with no magical creatures in sight, and even a small battery-powered flashlight. She told Harry once, during his brief visit, that she used it to read under her blanket at night, just as muggle children do. "It's like catching stars in your hands," she said, showing him the tiny beam. That flashlight became her personal symbol, a reminder that light can come from anywhere. Even within the pages of the Quibbler, the magazine her father edited, Luna tried to include the occasional piece on muggle innovation. While the publication was more known for its outlandish theories, including crumple-horned Snorkax and the Rotfang conspiracy, Luna believed that understanding muggles wasn't incompatible with seeking the unusual. She once wrote a small essay about muggle music, describing how some songs speak in vibrations to the soul. She noted that although wizards had magical instruments that played themselves, muggles put emotion into every note because they had to work harder to be heard. It was during the Battle of Hogwarts that Luna's open-mindedness shone in ways that went beyond trivia or preference. While many students thought first of magical defenses, Luna suggested using muggle strategies she'd learned from Hermione. Things like creating bottlenecks, distracting enemies with sound, or using mirrors for signaling. These ideas didn't replace magic, but they complemented it. It was the merging of both worlds, not their opposition, that gave the defenders a stronger foundation. Years after the war, Luna traveled the world, not just in search of magical creatures, but to understand how different cultures viewed magic and science. In one of her letters to Neville Longbottom, who had become the herbology professor at Hogwarts, she wrote, "I met a muggle biologist today who studies frogs. He doesn't know anything about magical toads, but he listens to the forest in a way that reminds me of you." That sentence encapsulated Luna's worldview. Everyone, wizard or muggle, had something unique to offer, if only others would listen. When she finally gave a speech at the International Wizarding Symposium, she didn't speak about Thestrals or Nargles. Instead, she chose to talk about what she called the invisible garden, a metaphor for the world of unseen ideas, emotions, and connections that existed between muggles and magical folk. "Just because someone doesn't have magic," she said, "doesn't mean they don't live a magical life." Her words were met with polite applause by some and genuine admiration by others. She didn't mind the skeptics. She never had. Luna also took up the habit of collecting muggle books, not just fiction, but science, art, and philosophy. Her favorite was a worn copy of Carl Sagan's Cosmos, which she said reminded her of Professor Dumbledore's belief that love was the most powerful magic of all. She highlighted passages and scribbled in the margins, connecting ideas about stardust and galaxies to spells and enchantments. To Luna, there was no boundary between what was magical and what was real. It was all one continuous mystery. In one rare moment of anger, Luna defended Hermione when someone mocked her for acting like a muggle. Luna stood firm and said, "You can't learn if you're always talking." The room went silent. It was a simple truth delivered without malice, but it carried the weight of her values. Learning, for Luna, meant listening, not just to spells or scrolls, but to the heartbeat of the non-magical world. Her loyalty wasn't to tradition, but to discovery. Her admiration for Shakespeare deepened with time. She came to see him as a kind of muggle prophet, someone who understood human hearts without ever holding a wand. When she quoted lines from The Tempest, such as, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on," it felt more like a spell than a recital. She once said she thought Shakespeare must have been part seer. How else could he describe the world so clearly without using magic? After marrying Rolf Scamander, Luna decorated their home with a balance of wizarding oddities and muggle artifacts. On their kitchen wall hung a print of Van Gogh's Starry Night, and on the bookshelf sat a mix of spellbooks and muggle science encyclopedias. Their children grew up knowing both the stories of Merlin and the myths of Icarus. Luna believed that raising children meant giving them eyes to see both the visible and the invisible,